Okay guys, and welcome back, and it's time for another short video, or hopefully short, at least one camera video. So right here what we're going to do is rebuilding the fork. It's already taken apart. They're not that hard to take apart. It's pretty much exactly the opposite of what I'm about to do. I'm sure there's some videos out there. Anyway, so some of the things you're going to need if you're rebuilding the forks are, of course, new fork seals. I like using the Yamaha ones, they're not very expensive. You're going to need the Yamaha R1 suspension or equivalent oil. One thing that's really nice to have is this compressor ring and holder. These are super cheap on Amazon, and it's really going to be a lot of trouble if you don't have it when you're trying to rebuild this fork. Also, a ratchet strap is nice to have for holding the fork down. Torque wrench, caliper for measuring the fork oil, and a 14mm wrench, and also a 24mm socket and a 14mm socket. So the first thing I'm going to do is, if you notice, this is not all the way up. You can tell this one's been in the sun a while. The reason I'm loosening this up is because and it takes some of the preload off and makes it a lot easier to put back together. That's pretty much the whole reason. You can see it moves this plate up, which is what presses on the spring. Okay, so the first thing we need to do now is open the fork seals. So this is going to be the wiper that goes on first, and this is the seal that goes on above it. Just using a little lubricant here on it. That'll just help seal life and stuff like that. So we're going to look at the order how they go first and how the stack goes. It's pretty clear right here on this diagram. First we have the dust seal. That's of course going to go at the pointy end this way. And just like that, slide it on. Put a little bit of fork oil on the tube too. It's not sliding very well. It's been cleaned. Okay. So next we look and we have this retainer. Right here, a retainer clip. Putting that on. And up next we have the fork seal itself. Careful putting this on, you don't want to tear it. The spring goes downward. Or it goes, there's a bevel on it and that goes downward. Okay, then last is this washer ring thing. And then that goes on. So that's the whole fork stack there. That's going to go into this now, the actual fork tube. So I'm going to put a bit more just oil on it here. So inside here there's actually some sliders that the fork tube rides on. Hopefully you can see that right there, or slides on. This is actually what takes the weight, so you want to make sure those are in good shape. And there's one way up in there, it's a lot harder to change, and they're also pretty hard to find. Just like that. There it is. So first I'm going to just kind of push that in there. You can see the seal went through that actually, not a big deal though. So then the seal is going to go right in just like that. Then we're going to need to drive the seal in. Oh, sorry, left that part out. One moment. So this is a fork seal driver, forgot to mention that. This is a 43mm one. I think it's the one for these forks. It might not be, but it works for these forks. So what you can do is on this one, it just kind of wraps around like that. And then it twists to lock in. And get the paper towel out of the way. Rag. Just like that. Okay, so the seal has been driven in now. Kind of the next part is this little clip here. I'm going to make sure that is seated all the way in that groove in there. Alright, then this one just kind of pushes in here by hand. Okay, so now we've got the new fork seals in, just like that. So up next we're going to get ready to put the actual fork oil in. Okay, so now I'm going to put some of the fork oil in. The first thing I'm going to put in is the dampening control rod right there. It just goes straight in. So Yamaha calls for, let's have a look here, about 0.53 of a liter, half a liter of fork oil, the recommended O1 oil. So that's about what I have in here because I used the other half on the other fork and I measured it out, so this one should be pretty close. So I'm gonna let that bubble for a minute. Okay. And then I'm gonna grab this rod, which is the dampening rod, and I'm gonna work it up and down, which is releasing the air out of the system. You can feel it when it starts grabbing. It helps to have the compression, I think it's actually rebound. Whichever one's at the bottom out there turned all the way out. Okay. You can see here we need to measure 76 millimeters from the top of the outer fork leg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set my caliper here to millimeters. Check, make sure it's right. Not bad. And then I'm going to set it to 76 millimeters here. Close enough. Okay, then I'm just going to simply come to the top of that fork. And looks like the oil is just a bit deep. Yeah, if you can see it there, just like a few millimeters. So I'm probably going to get just a bit of oil out with a paper towel or something like that. Just soak it up. They actually have a tool for this if you really care to do it right. Perfect. Okay, so now the oil's in, and the next step is going to be putting the spring back in. It just make sure the spring's clean, doesn't have anything on it. And then, so the spring goes back in with the big end down, just like that. Okay. Then this will go on top of it, and then the spring compressor I was mentioning, this is where we're going to use it right here. You could build your own. I've seen plenty of people do that with some bolts or something like that. But these things are really cheap, so. Okay. So now we need to compress the spring down. If you have a friend, you can get them just to push down on it. I'm here by myself right now. So I will use a ratchet strap. Give me one moment. Okay, now I got my ratchet strap on here. My sketchy spring compressor set up. I got a little rag here to keep the ratchet from scratching the fork. I'm just gonna start pulling it down. When the rod's not in here, it's a lot easier to take it off because it doesn't try to go every which way like it's doing right now. Just take your time with it. Okay, so I've got it about down far as it'll go. We can see that thing in there, so I'm going to use a magnet to pull it up now. Got it. There we are. Okay, so here's the other piece of that tool. I have it in there now. The way you position this nut is it's going to be 11 millimeters from the top of the here. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on my caliper here. I'll use this other end again here. So it needs to come out just a bit. So yeah, just right about a bit more up even. Right about there. Then on this, we need to put this back in. this should be 13 millimeters in. So we'll go out to that on our caliper here. Too far, so come in some. Probably just be easier to keep going until it pushes the caliper a bit. Right there. Okay. So now I'm ready to install this onto here. It just simply screws on, nothing really to that. Try to keep that nut from moving there. And it's going to be torqued down to 15 Newton meters. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set my wrench up for that, which is a little bit tricky here. So I can't torque it directly, so I'll have to torque it from the top with my torque wrench. And then I'll just use the 14 millimeter wrench to hold this in place, like that. So just like that. So that's torqued down now. Okay, next, I'm going to come in here and look at this. See, this has to slide up onto there, and that adjusts that preload like I mentioned. So I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to go ahead and release these. It's going to come back up some, just like that. So now all the pressure is on this plate right here. Then what I'm going to do is push it down manually and push this out of the way. Just like that. There we are. Okay, and see that just slides back up on there and seats on that, and that's what sets our preload. So you can see here, turning that simply pushes this down and pushes more on the spring. Pretty straightforward on the preload. So I'm just going to go down to where it was. About right on that line. Okay. Okay, lastly, this just gets pulled up on this. And we use this again to tighten it down. I probably won't be able to torque it down right here in my hand. I don't want to mess up these fork tubes any more than I already have. So, I'll probably wait to torque this top one down until it's on the bike. Okay, so the fork's rebuilt. That's all there really is to it. Reset your suspension to Yamaha, and let me know if you have any questions.